we've got some good work done on forms, and now the question arises, when we click the submit button, what's going to happen to the data? All the values that we've typed in text boxes and text areas, all the value associated with the radio button that we've clicked, and the value associated with the option selection list. Where's all that data going to go? Well, essentially there are three places it can go in terms of keeping that data. First of all, we could write it into a server, into a database, typically on a web server using a language like PHP and SQL, which you'll learn about later. Or we could keep it on the machine the user is using, or keep it on the client side as it's called. The browser is on the client side. And we could store it in two places on that. Before HTML5, we would have to store it into a small file on our machine called a cookie. And that information could be used to personalize and customize the web page the next time you come onto it. So for example, if you log into Amazon, it will say welcome back Philip or something like that, because it will have your name stored in a cookie in this wee file. Okay, but with HTML5 we are able to do a lot more. We can store a lot more information on the machine itself, on the client side. Cookie is a small text file, maximum size 4 kilobytes. HTML5 arrived with what's called local storage, and local storage allows us to store up to 10 megabytes on the client machine. So let's just have a look at our web page here. Okay, and this is, if you go to the link that's in the notes in the resources, there's a link there. This is in Chrome settings site data. If we look at that, we can see here, you can see all these cookies. We can see certain things are stored in a database. Here we've got local storage. Okay, and this is the actual machine here. This is our local machine, 127.0.0.1, the IP address for localhost. Okay, so we've got some information stored in here. Now, what we're going to do today is, in this video and the next one probably, we are going to have a simple form with just 3 form elements. Let me show it to you here. Okay, I put some information into it. This is in the resources, and we are going to use a new programming language called JavaScript. When we click the submit button, we're going to do a couple of things. Okay, first of all, if I show you something wrong here. So far we've used HTML to validate, for example, using required. Okay, but what about if we don't want just something to be typed in, but at least 3 characters? You can see it says it there. Okay, we want at least 3 characters. So if I type 1 character, there's a number text box, there's a country picked from selection list. I click on the submit button. Okay, I want to get 3 or more characters, please. Okay, so we can't just use very simple form validation using the required property of a text box for that. Okay, so we need a little bit more code to do that, and we're going to use a programming language called JavaScript. Okay, JavaScript is one of, if not the most commonly used programming language at the moment. Okay, Twitter feed, Facebook feeds, Google Maps, Google Earth, these all use JavaScript. Okay, very widely used. This is from Octoverse. This link is in the resources as well, in the Word document. Okay, so JavaScript followed by Python. These are the most common programming languages. We'll do some PHP later on. So you're getting a good dose of all the most commonly used languages. Okay, if you want to get more information on local storage, you can just go to HTML APIs on W3 Schools and pick HTML web storage. Or there is the link there. Okay, so how do we do this? Okay, well essentially we need to run a little bit of JavaScript code when we click on the submit button. Okay, and in fact let me put some valid information in. Okay, so that's more than 3 letters. So when I click on the submit button, I'm on to my page 2, my second page, which is in the resources. and you can see what we're seeing here. We're seeing the information that was from the text box, more than 3 letters. That was in the number text box, and that is the value coming from the selected selection list option. Just to show you that, I didn't make that explicit. If we go to inspect for the selection list and go into it, you can see there's Ireland, value equals IE, like that. Okay, so let's put some different information just to and there we go there, that new information is coming out. Okay, if we go into developer tools, F12, we can see this information. Let's show it up there. All we need to do is type local storage here. There it is there coming up. Okay, and in fact we are seeing some information from another web page as well, but somewhere in here you can see down here the age, the underscore age, the underscore country, the underscore name. Okay, Phil, RE, rest of Europe, and the age. Okay, so where are these coming from? The underscore age, the underscore country, the underscore name. Well, something to do with the form, obviously. So let's right click here and inspect, and we should find that these are the actual names of the form elements. Okay. And in fact they are not. Okay, and the reason they're not, is because I'm using, they're the name of JavaScript variables that I'm using to write into local storage. Okay, so that's the plan. Yeah, we got this form of 3 elements. We want to get the values of the 3 elements. We want to store them locally on the client side, and then we want to display them on the next page in a nice, neat way. So we need to write some JavaScript. So what is JavaScript? What's it all about? Well, there's some notes in here, and we are going to use JavaScript to do a couple of things. Okay, first of all, it's syntax. It looks like Java. Hopefully that's not too much of a jump. But the difference really between Java and JavaScript is that JavaScript is essentially used in connection with web pages. Okay, so we use JavaScript to access individual HTML tags. We can use JavaScript to override styles as well. So you might remember with form elements, we had to write the name of form elements, and we also had the ID of form elements. Okay, so we're going to use the ID to actually get the value, and remember the value is what we type in. Each selection list option should have a value, and each radio button should also have a value. Okay, so the value property of our form elements is going to be really important, along with the ID property of the form elements. Okay, so there's already a small piece of JavaScript in the first web page, in the footer. So let's have a look at that. Here it is here. Okay, so what's going on here with this JavaScript? We use a script tag. We've been talking about script tag for a long time in our template, but let's actually use it now. And it's coming up here twice. Okay, first time here I've got some JavaScript inside it. So let's try and make sense of this. Okay, I'm creating a special type of variable called an object. It's going to store the date. Okay, and because there's nothing in the brackets, that means it's going to store the date and time of literally right now. Whenever the web page is run, that's the date that's going to be stored in it. Okay, and we are going to call this date object a variable called right now. Okay, there's the first difference between Java and JavaScript. We use var to declare a variable. Okay, so right now it's going to store information on the current date, literally right now. So it's going to have it's going to have the month name, it's going to have the date, it's going to have the full year, it's going to have the hours, the minutes, and the seconds as well. Okay, so what I want to do with this is I want to get the year from it. Okay, so we have the variable name right now, dot, which the dot is sort of a chain. I'm using a JavaScript function then. Oh, sorry about that. Should go in there. Okay, I'm using a JavaScript function called getFullYear. So that will return 2020 for this year, or whatever year, okay, because it's 2020. And it will store it in current year. And what we're then going to do is we are then just going to write that onto the screen, document.write current year. So we're going to write, if the year is 2020, we are going to write 2020 here. Okay, before we have 2020, we want to put one of these HTML special characters, the copyright symbol. Okay, so we'll end up with copyright 2020. Let's check that out. Is that happening? There it is there. Okay, so the 2020 there is coming from running a little piece of JavaScript. What about second usage of the word script? Here it says source this time. Okay, so it's pointing the browser towards a subfolder called scripts and looking for localstorage.js inside that folder. Okay, and it's going to run it there. So here script is being used a little bit like the link tag for CSS. Okay, where we have link href styles / whatever. In fact, probably got one up here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so script with source in it, the name of a JavaScript file, is a little bit like the link with the href. Okay, so it's pointing us towards some external JavaScript. Okay, and this is our external JavaScript. Okay, so in the resources you haven't written any, so we are going to do that shortly. Okay, so what are we going to use JavaScript for? We're going to use JavaScript for form validation, and we're going to do some simple validation here. We want to make sure there's at least 3 characters have been typed into the name text box. If that's not true, we want to do a few things. Okay, we want to stop the form going on to the next page, which is, where is the form tag? Here it is. Okay, we want to stop the form from going on in here. Okay, going on to the second page, thanks.html. And we also want to go to the next page if the form data is valid. Okay, what else are we going to use JavaScript for? If the form data is valid, then we are going to write the form element values into local storage. So we've got our 3 pieces of information. We're going to write that into local storage. And when that happens, we are then also going to go on to page 2. And when we get to page 2, we want to read the values from local storage and display them into the page into particular tags with IDs. Okay, so we read the data from the form elements with IDs on page 1 if the form is valid, and then we write the data into tags with IDs. So IDs becomes important. Okay, so we're going to have 2 chunks of JavaScript to write. Okay, the first page, the JavaScript is triggered when we click the submit button. Okay, that's the event. This is an important word in JavaScript, as you'll see later on. Okay, so the event is when we click the submit button, we want to run a JavaScript function, basically. A function is just, you can think of it, a code with a title for that chunk of code. It's a JavaScript function. On the second page, when we load the web page, we want to read the local storage and we want to display it on the page. So we want that to happen as soon as we load the second page. Okay, so 2 chunks of JavaScript code, 2 JavaScript functions, and 2 events are going to trigger these functions. So when we have our JavaScript functions, we have to give those functions a name, and we also have to call those functions. So that's what the next video is going to do.